Thank you. So we're now live and everyone can hear us. So welcome again, everyone. Welcome to the people in the chat who are joining us online and are not live here with us in our beautiful library. So, as I was saying earlier, which none of you could hear, but that's okay. Thank you for joining us for Kubuni. And if you're joining us online, whether you're in PE or outside of PE, feel free to just introduce yourself in the chat if you like. And also, if you want, you can tell us a bit about where you are and how you heard about this exhibition. And we want the chat to be a safe space for you to exchange ideas and ask your questions. So feel free to ask them as they come to you during this event, and we'll do our best to answer them. And Guillaume, who is in the crowd live with us, will be nudging me to answer those questions and pointing me to you guys as well. So yeah, that's it. Um, anything else I can add? So maybe I'm going to introduce myself first while everyone is arriving. I don't know if anyone is going to be joining us, but anyone else, but let me start. So my name is Ismahan, and I'm the Culture and Communication Officer here at Alliance Française of Port Elizabeth in South Africa, which is where we are right now. So I'm not in the same room as everyone else. I'm in a separate room, but I am in the building. So for those of you who don't know me, you'll get to meet me after when we start looking at the art, which I'm really excited about. Yeah, so for those of you who are visiting us for the first time, and also as a refresher for those of you who know this place, but maybe you need like a little bit of a reminder on what Alliance Française is. So Alliance Française is a nonprofit, apolitical, cultural, and language center. So we teach languages here, French, ici Xhosa. I hope that I did that right. And we also teach English. So we do that in person and also online. And we also organize cultural events, as I said, and that's what I do here. And so we've been in PE since the 1960s, I think 1960 itself, actually. And we're affiliated to the Paris-based Fondation des Alliances Françaises. So there are lots of other centers like this around the world and in Africa, for instance. Which brings me to the reason why we're all here tonight, which is the opening of the exhibition Kubuni, Comics from Africa. So let me tell you a little bit about it. It's an exhibition which features comics from sub-Saharan Africa, which you'll get to discover very soon. And this exhibition will be touring Southern Africa. And PE has the privilege of being the first location to open this exhibition as part of this tour. So that's very exciting. Then this exhibition will travel around different establishments. So I think 8 different alliances, so like this place, but all different sizes and locations. So it will go to Botswana, it will go to Zambia, Lesotho, and other cities in South Africa. So it's going to go to Gaborone in Botswana, Lusaka in Zambia, Maseru in Lesotho, Harare and Bulawayo in Zim, and it's also going to go to Pretoria. And finally, it will also go to a French institute. So the one that's in Joburg. So that's very exciting. And I think it will get there for the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the Dibuka Library, which is there. Another thing which I can tell you about this project and this big tour is that it was made possible through the support of the French Institute of Paris. So we're very grateful for that. And yeah, along with this exhibition, we have a collection of comic books, 100 comic books that's also touring with it. So you can actually borrow these comics from our library here. which you are in right now for some of you. And for those of you who are joining us online, some of these comics are also available online through CultureTech, the online platform which we use to support learning. So I'm gonna pop the link into the chat right here for you guys to access. Guillaume, I see, did it, so that's amazing. Thank you, Guillaume. Yeah, and what else can I say? I think I'm going to give you a little bit of context right now. I think that's going to be good for the exhibition and for comic books in general. So, because that's why we're here to talk about. So, PE has many, many beautiful bookshops, and also I've noticed that secondhand book exchange is also very active, which is lovely. I'm a big fan, and I really love giving books a second chance. However, something that we've noticed here at Alliance Française is that comics are underrepresented in these bookshops. And another bit of context that everyone here is aware of the major comic book spheres and traditions that have been developed over time. So for instance, you have the French and Belgian comic books. So with, for instance, Tintin, Astérix, those are like major ones that everyone knows about. And then everyone knows about manga in Japan. And then last but not least, there's also US comics. So that's also a pretty big, oh, I think we've lost the people in the room. I don't know, I can't see you anymore. Okay. So I don't know if anyone in the chat has. I'm going to check the chat and see if anyone has anything. I'd love for you guys in the chat to introduce yourself if possible. That would be lovely. And also it kind of makes it more real. I'm waiting to hear if everything's okay in the library here. Thank you. Thank you for answering my question. Sorry, but I have no idea how to pronounce your name. Pangela? Tell me if I get it wrong. That's also okay. But, oh, it's lovely. Thank you for answering. And I'm glad that you know of this exhibition at the university. Oh, thank you. Oh, I managed to say it right. You know, that's something that I think is very important, getting people's names right. So I'm really happy about that. Let me see. I'm gonna ask the people in the room if they're still there. And how did you hear about the exhibition at the university? Oh, that's very interesting. An auto manufacturer. And how did you come to be curious about comic books? Ah, here, the room is back. Yeah, so, oh, what was I saying? I was talking about the context of comic books here. So, yeah, American comics, everyone knows about them, right? They're very, very famous. And for instance, everyone knows the Avengers, everyone knows Black Panther, and these heroes like Black Panther, they all come from comics that are 80 years old, some of them. So comic books are actually very, very popular if you think about it that way. And it's interesting because people tend to think about comic books as something that's meant for children, whereas these films are definitely not meant solely for a teenage audience. And comics are also very useful tools for learning, which is something which is very relevant for us here at Alliance Française because, well, we teach French, and sometimes when the learner doesn't really know a word and wants to learn some vocabulary, comic books can be very useful tools because you have the words written, and then on the page you can also see a drawing which illustrates that word. So it's also a very good cue to take. And yeah, so I think that I'm now gonna introduce you to our first guest, and both our guests actually. Joëlle and Ren, can you please turn on your cameras? Hi ladies, welcome.
Hey.
Hey,
Hi, so I think I'm gonna start by handing over the baton, so to speak, to Joëlle Épée, who is the co-curator of this exhibition, Kubuni, amongst many other things. She'll tell you all about the work that she does and also the origin of this exhibition. And also, Joëlle, can you tell us a bit about where you are right now? Tell the audience.
oh, okay. So, hi everyone. Um, oh yes, you can wave your hands and okay, so I can see that we're interacting. That's cool. So I'm Joëlle Épée Mandenge, and I'm the co-curator of Kubuni comics from Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and right now I'm in Guinea. There are three Guinea in Africa, and I'm in the original one. Guinée-Conakry. You have Guinea-Bissau and Guinea Equatorial Guinea, and I'm in the far west Guinea, which is closer to Senegal. So you can locate perfectly. I heard you said it, Isman, that it's important to pronounce correctly the names. I heard yesterday evening that Port Elizabeth has a new name since 2021, and I
Yeah.
tried to pronounce it correctly. So please be patient. I'll do it just once. Thank you for having me in Pera.
Yeah, that's good.
I still have to train a bit about it. So I am an author at the core. I do comics books, and I'm a Cameroonian comic author. And I got the opportunity with all the experience that I got from producing comics to create a festival. And my festival is called Bilili Bede Festival in Congo Brazzaville. And from the experience of at the center, at the core, being an African author, creating a comic book festival, we'll get to that later. I had links and bonds and connections with different structures around the world, and a specific one at Angoulême. Angoulême is one of the main city of French comics and then worldwide comics. It's actually the capital of comics worldwide, the festival Bande Dessinée d'Angoulême. And we've started working together on an exhibition, Kubuni Comics from Africa. It was a mutual desire to showcase the quality, the diversity of creation on the continent. The Museum of Angoulême, the Museum of Comics in Angoulême, had already done an exhibition in North Africa, in an exhibition on comics from Middle East. So they covered all the Arab world, but they never had something below the Sahara Desert, and it was a challenge for them. Um, a great experience for both of us to have a sort of map of what is done. on the continent. And if I just have to give you a clue on the numbers, back in 2013, we had more than 1,000 artists doing comics on the continent and in the sub-Saharan part of the continent. So we really have the number, but we don't have the distribution right. We don't have the right connection to get to know what is being done in one country or the other. We still lack that to showcase the very wide diversity of creation on the continent. So that's how I came to be the co-curator on this exhibition. It was done in the frame of what is known as the Africa 2021 project with France. And it was also the 2021 year of comics. So that's how we use that opportunity and all the spotlight to showcase what has been done in the South.
Okay, wow. Yeah, I had wondered about how why it was only sub-Saharan Africa that was represented. I was wondering if it was because there was a lack of comics and comic book authors in North Africa. But from what you're saying, it's more that you wanted to represent the richness of what existed elsewhere in the continent. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yes, at the beginning of it, we really wanted to cover all the continent, but the continent is more than 50 countries. And the challenge was to make an exhibition that was easy to digest for people on the continent and who are not familiar with the continent too. Um, an exhibition that was easy, which was easy to digest, um, interesting, entertaining, and also, um, yeah. And when we started working on it, you have many artists in the north, in Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria. You really have quite a good number of artists. But since they had already done that exhibition and nothing had ever been done on the south of the continent, except one exhibition that we did, and you can already find it online. We talked about it earlier behind the curtains, the Afropolitan Comics exhibition, which was a conversation between comic book artists from South Africa and comic book artists below the Sahara Desert. We were 16. We had selected 16 artists in that conversation. That was the very first trial to make a quality exhibition showcasing the diversity, the resemblance, but still the identities of artists on the continent. And it was, having an exhibition in the South, it will also be it would have been a great opportunity to, it's not really to separate, but to focus on that part of the continent. So that's why finally we said, okay, we won't cover the north. We really keep and focus on the south and have Kubuni the way we did.
Okay. Yeah, also, I noticed that Guillaume popped a message in the chat encouraging people online to ask us questions. So you can, of course, do that. And if anyone in the library also has questions, they can also start raising their hand if they want. Joëlle, can you tell us also what brought you to Guinea? Because that's very interesting. And is it a work opportunity?
Oh, not really. It's love. Yeah, but my life is not that easy. I'm very sorry. It's the end of the day. Many may not catch up very fast because even me, I myself, I find it difficult to follow my own life. My husband is Cameroonian. I am Cameroonian, but he found a job in Congo, Brazzaville. So we went to Congo, where I created my festival, growing, blossoming, and everything, and having this huge impact in Central Africa. And then the same husband he found another work in Guinea.
Mm.
So I find myself in a very huge dilemma, should I let the guy go and stay in Congo, or should I follow him because I'm in love and see how I can develop other things there? And so finally, I followed him because I'm in love with him, and we have a kid together. But still, it's interesting how it brought something else to my career, because at the end of the day, I'm an artist, so I only need internet. I don't really need, a specific structure to work in every morning. I just need a good internet connection, and so far I am online, so this is fine. And the fact that I've been able to be in the far west of Africa has created new opportunities to connect with artists in this era, because I only knew them online for the Kubuni exhibition. And coming to the West, I've got to have a better understanding of the Senegalese comic book artist, the Ivory Coast artist, Ghanaian. So moving with him is also a good thing, because we want to stay on the continent, and it changes the way I see things that I will only see and work on online.
Okay. I mean, it's great that you got to meet some of the artists. I'm sure that also will bring new opportunities. And I had a few other questions that I wanted to ask you. Um, so one of them is, where else was Kubuni shown? Can you tell us where the exhibition has been already and a little bit more about that? And also after that, if you would like to share with us what's next for you professionally, we'd love to hear about it.
Okay, so Kubuni, so far, when we created it with my co-curator Jean-Philippe Martin, we were hoping and praying and working hard for it to move worldwide. We really wanted people, to say, okay, we go to an African exhibition, we'll see African work. Okay, let's see what is in there. And once they get out of the exhibition, we wanted them to be like completely ecstatic, excited, have sparkles in the eyes, and be like, oh, they have this in Africa. Oh, do you know in Nigeria they draw like this? Oh, I didn't know that in South Africa they had a superhero. I didn't know that they had comics like Quizzy. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know this. We really wanted people to freak out at the end of the exhibition, to come very casually and to get out and buy books and devour them. And the outcome is, since the exhibition has started being public in 2021, we have already been to, well, let's say the only continent we've not yet been is Asia so far, and the Far East, that is New Zealand and Australia. But we've already been in some countries in Europe, in South America, and we are having plans on getting to the US, I guess, and the North America, and obviously many countries on the continent, which was really, the thing that really excited me so much was when Kubuni went to Riyadh. The exhibition went to Saudi Arabia and to the United Emirates, and it was translated in Arabic. I couldn't get a word of what was translated. I could not confirm if the translation was right, but seeing just, the effort of it, and the people being curious about the South, was really something that moved me a lot. And I know that Ren, who is one of our dear artist. We really love her work, and we really have. I'm very happy to be here to have this conversation by her side. I know that Ren has been contacted by many structures too, to come to different countries, to be online to talk about her work in a Kubuni exhibition. I know that next month I'm supposed to be in Colombia for the exhibition. And that's a very exotic destination for me. I only know Colombia from movies, but they said it's not like that. So I'll go and see for myself. I'll go and see for myself. But well, it's the French Institute said that as far as their collections is concerned, is the best so far, the most wanted exhibition. worldwide. So we've reached the goal and we've reached the goal and beyond. We are very happy to see that the exhibition is moving around the world.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's amazing that it's had such a big reach and that people from different places in the world have been able to connect to it and to find out a bit more about the work that is done within the continent. I'm gonna invite Guillaume to pop in the links to Joëlle's socials, so her Instagram and also a short comic by her. And if you could also share the Afropolitan Comics exhibition, which is an online exhibition which you can also enjoy at your leisure, will be great. And that way, the people who are joining us remotely can also have a look at that, and that's great. So Joëlle, I was also going to ask you because I know that, and I think the audience also knows now that well, you did organize a festival, but another one of your hats, if we can say that, is also that you are an artist yourself. So can you tell us a bit more about your artistic practice and that side of things?
Um, okay, so for that, maybe you can share the presentation. You can share the screen, or do you want me to share the screen?
I can
That
share
you
the
can
screen if
just
you want.
scroll and go through so that people will see the style and the design and so I'm at the core, I'm an artist. I do comic books and I do, so this is my work. So you can just scroll, you don't have to stop. So people will just see the general, style and stuff. And I, uh, I do comic books in French and English with various kind of clients. And one of my themes is really to discuss human interactions, social interactions. Oh yeah, I'm also a stand-up comedian when I have time. So maybe if you had a good laugh, then I'm happy. And so I really, really wanted to be in comics since childhood. Just fun facts: when I was a kid, I started being exposed to animated features, especially French and Japanese animated features that were not appropriate for my age. But back in the days, people like today thought that animated features or comic books are for kids. So I was exposed to um, many Japanese, kind of animated features, and the Disney like of animation. And as I grew up, I really wanted to do it myself also. I really wanted to do comics. And I'm the only girl in my family. I'm the firstborn. I'm a full 100% African. So my dad really didn't like that I wanted to be a comic book artist. My mom was okay with my dad, and they will call it a failure for all my life. And once I reached 25 years old, I told them that I really wanted to mess up my life with my own choices. And I really wanted to do comics. So from that period, I had the opportunity to study comic books and to study, yeah, comics and the various formations in Belgium, in a school in Belgium, and to fully commit to it as I came back to Cameroon. It was not easy, but it was worth it. Like for example, we have this. It's true that we can interact directly, but still, I'm here and we can interact. It's part of the fruits of just being resilient. And as time went by, I co-create the Diary of Eben Duta. You can see the character with a big heart, and I did it as an entrepreneur back in the days, um, and I could have enough money to publish my first, yeah, let's say, wait, auto edition, the first self-published comic book, because I did works for different publishing houses or different kind of clients. You saw part of my clients in the beginning of the, the, the presentation book. And I did volume 1, 2, 3 of The Diary of a Benduta, and I took a break on it because I was creating the festival, the Bilili Bede Festival. I really wanted to contribute to multiply profiles like myself, because I could travel a lot with this comic books. I was invited in many countries to talk about her. I love to write on all the uneasy situation, all yeah, those situations where you're very uncomfortable with, but you feel at the same time sorry for someone who is going through this kind of situation, but at the same time it makes you laugh. Those kind of very uncomfortable situations in life, in social interactions. So those are the things I'm interested in, and I wrote them, and specifically in this book. And I've planned to continue the series. This is volume 3. I wrote the list. So maybe you have the opportunity to get the book at the Culture but volume 4 might come out by the end of the year or next year, 2024, and I'll continue to tell the story of this character. So this is about me, and so far so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's very good actually. It was a very brave choice considering, like the perception that your work had back then from your family. And yeah, it's really good that you took it this far. I mean, you organized a very big festival, so props to you, and this wonderful exhibition as well, so everyone get to see it for themselves and let your work speak for itself. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm now gonna hand over the baton to Ren, who is also gonna tell us where she is right now and a little bit about herself and her work.
Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Wow.
Okay. So I'm Ren Diboussi. I'm an illustrator, scriptwriter, and co-founder of a graphic studio and publishing house. And I'm the author of the comic book Mulatako that you might see in the exhibition, Kubuni. I'm very happy to be part of this chat, and among you, even if I'm not there with you. It's my dream to go to South Africa one day, so maybe. Currently, I'm in France, in a town next to Paris, which is far from Paris at the same time, but well, I'm close to Paris. And what can I say? I can talk to you about Mulatako, maybe to talk to you a little bit about that comic book that I created, which is
So
a
you
series.
also want me to share the video?
Yeah, why not? Let's go. So, but the video might cover all the questions maybe that Joëlle answered
Okay,
too. So
it's
I'll
okay. You
try
can go
to.
for it, and I can share the video after if you want.
No, you can start. Let's start with Mulatako.
Okay, let me see.
So
It's gonna come in a second. Here we go.
so yes, this is Jemia, who is the main character of the comic book. She's a water spirit. It's the story of so Jemia, a water spirit who is powerless, who doesn't have any powers, and who decides to stand against the leaders of her underwater world, who wants to exterminate her school. And with her parents and friends, they rebel, and the whole story is about that little girl who wants to show the world and to show her elders and the humans who wants to also exterminate the water spirits, who are called Miengu. She wants to show these people who she really is and not who they want her to be. Also, this comic book, maybe we'll stop the video because I cannot.
That's okay.
That quickly. So yeah, Mulatako, I was inspired by my culture. My father is Cameroonian, and my mother is French, from the Caribbean, French Caribbean, Guadeloupe. And I always wanted to know where the myth Mami Wata came from. And then I started looking, doing research around that myth. How, I don't know if you know Mami Wata in South Africa, but in water spirits in Cameroon and in other African countries, it's a word. It's a very well-known word. So yeah. So it's a very. I'm also reading the chat. So you don't know, but when I started looking into that Mami Wata thing, I discovered that some of the people call them mermaids, see them as female people, creatures, and very with very dark stories, and then I started researching to why in my culture in Cameroon, because my father is Malimba, from the Sawa group, and in my culture we know that word, and so I started doing research on that myth, and then I discovered that it's not a myth, but it's a belief. People believe in not Mami Wata, we call them Miengu or Jengu for the singular. And that's when I wanted to do science fiction story about that, because I grew up with comic books, with animes, animated films. And
there's actually a question for you in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Ninkyatu Jusu's movie, Nanny, and how it handles the concept of Mamiwata? I don't know if you're familiar with this film.
No, I don't know that movie. I don't know that movie. Is it a recent one?
We'll let the person in the chat answer, but otherwise it would be good to check it out after, and that way we'll learn a bit about it.
Totally. Maybe I will I'll continue tell you about, and then I will tell you how other people in other African countries felt about that story, felt about the Mami Wata part in my story. So I wanted to base my story on a Cameroonian. I wanted to, I don't know if I can say, to ground it in a Cameroonian culture fact. But I didn't want it to be a historical book, yeah, or a very serious book. I wanted it to be a comic book with science fiction. So that's why I did this. And also, I studied in France. I studied art in France, and the whole race concept in France is very tricky. It's kind of difficult to be published when you are you come with a comic book with all dark skinned characters or all African characters, and I didn't want to wait. I sent the proposition I received. They didn't want me to be published, so I self-published. And it was also a time when I met Alliance, Joëlle, and she helped me. She told me, "Hey, do your thing, publish your book. Look at me, I've published mine. It's possible." So I was like, "Okay, it's I may do that." She was like, "Yeah, do it," and she gave me some advice to how to present the book and sell myself. So yeah, it was a very, very good experience. So I published the book. I published the first one. It's a series of comic books in 4 books, and now the first was issued in 2017, and the second in 2021. So, and I'm working on the third one, but not right now because I had to take a break. And right now I'm working on a whole other project. Ooh. So, yeah. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted you to tell us about that exciting new project.
Oh, so right now the project.
Or is it secret?
No, it's not secret. I'm working with a French author who's called Laurent Safou, who's very productive one. I mean, every year she publishes a book, a novel, or a comic book. You know, she's very productive. And what made me, because earlier I said I studied in France and wanted to publish comic books talking about my identity as a Black French person, who also, even if I'm not Cameroonian on paper, my father is Cameroonian, so I grew up in Cameroon, so it's a huge part of my personality, of my identity, and I somehow felt like it was always difficult to talk about it and to, yeah, when I say it's difficult to talk about it, I mean to be published, to be recognized as an author, like really. after I studied in a school, it was always difficult to do that. So I had to yeah, it's a real thing to publish as a Black author in France, and to talk about it. Like, you can publish and not say that you're Black and not talk about your identity. It will be okay. But as soon as it becomes a thing to put Black characters or to talk about your identity, it's always difficult. So it is a huge part of my art to focus on African, Black, and Afro descendants. I don't know if you say that in English. Representation. It's important. It's the whole part. It's the biggest part of my work. Also, my feminism, and also putting diverse and sometimes marginalized people in my comic books. It's important to me. So yeah.
You heard it here, folks. Because usually people think, I think it's a perception that I've heard about quite a lot, that comics are for kids. But see, you can do very important work using comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Molatako was received as is a comic book for children. None of my other work is. So it's difficult for me sometimes to, talk about, I don't know, my feminism, some feminist subjects, or very doing, comic books for adults, or very serious themes. Because people sometimes, just say, oh, you're drawing for kids, and it's not simple. And at the same time, I never underestimate the capacity of a kid to understand things. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made a comic book such as Mulatako. Mulatako has different level of understanding. I don't know if I can say it in English, but what people told me, what the public told me when they read Mulatako, was that the kids were like, wow, the colors, the environment, the fact that they're all Black. And because even in Cameroon, having a comic book with a main character who is a little girl, even though she's a water spirit and her feet are backwards, because it comes with it's a part of the mythology and the belief that they look like that. They look like humans, part of their feet, so they they look like humans. So it's even in Cameroon, it's very difficult to find comic books with a little girl, dark skin, natural hair. She has dreadlocks, like big dreadlocks like that. And so the what I received as a common comments were like the colors, the story. She's very, Jamia is a very stubborn little girl. She likes to say no. She likes to rebel, and that's her, and she's very stubborn. Then I also yeah, I will tell you about the other the other project I'm communicating about. So I was saying that even adults receive that comic book differently. They were interested by the mythology behind it, the science fiction behind it, and the subjects. And so maybe I'll answer. The other project is the project.
Actually, I'm going to read the question out first, because the people in the room can't see it. So if you want, you can read it out loud, or I can.
Oh, so Hendy Busi, I've also seen another project you're communicating on these days on social media. Please, can you tell us something about it? It's the project I am working. So I'm a little bit confused, because 2 days ago I've communicated about So 2 days ago, I communicated
Mhm.
about a project that was just published. Who is a scientific project who presents many French scientists, and it was a collaboration. So I illustrated a 4 pages comic book, a 4 pages in that comic book on one of the scientists. Also, I'm also working on a group project of graphic novel. So bigger comic books, like who will focus on African feminisms, or
Okay.
one story of an African feminism happening in Cameroon. And I'm currently working with 3 other authors with that. So it's the project was brought to us by a PhD history. So she has a PhD and she's a teacher in university of history, sociology, and politics.
Wow, impressive.
Yeah,
That's a good background to have.
and her whole work focuses on African feminism.
Okay.
In
So I noticed
plural.
that
Yeah,
you
her name
is
is.
pumping in names and links for that. So
Yeah,
it's
so
amazing.
I'll tell her name here. Her name is Rose Ndenge. She's Cameroonian, currently living in Canada, and teaching at York University. I think. I hope I get
Oh,
that
wow.
right.
I
Yeah.
mean, so many impressive women working from
Yeah.
all over the world. Wow.
That project, I mean, I'm hyped by that project. I can't wait to work on this. I already started. I mean, not started drawing, but we already started. So she proposed me to adapt her one part of her thesis in comic book, and I said that it's a huge project. Historical projects in comic book frighten me a little bit because I'm a very visual person. I want to really see the things I am drawing, and history, African history, in some part of it, the images, the are not available and are difficult to find. So, and it was a huge project. I asked her if I could bring in other authors, and she said yes. So there's also Karin Barnack, who is also in the chat. I can see her. She is a script writer, and she also
Feel free to share that with us. I'm just
Yeah.
mindful of the time here because we're coming to the end of our time together soon, and I also want to give.
Okay.
No worries. So we'll let the people in the room also ask questions, but I wanted to ask you one last question before we do that. I wanted to ask you about how you were approached to work on the exhibition Kubuni, and has this opportunity brought you more opportunities, and what is the impact of the work you did there? What do you think?
Oh, Kubuni, I was approached by Joëlle and her co-curator. I forgot his name.
Jean-Philippe.
Yeah, Jean-Philippe. Sorry. So they asked me if I would wanted to be part of it. I was already part of the Afropolitan comic book online exhibition, and I was like, yes, I really wanted to. I really want to be part of this, because I in I think it's the first one. It's the first exhibition about African comic books, and and really it was. I I attend to the exhibition in Angoulême, so I saw the exhibition, and I was like, I was moved. It was emotional for me to be in the same place as Joya. I mean, the first comic book author of Cameroon, maybe Africa. I don't know, but I think it's like it was in 19. I don't know what when. How old was his comic book? But he's the first one. So it was very. I was very moved to be there, to be part of this. I was very very moved to discover all the talents, all the artists, and as a comic book entrepreneur, I mean, I co-founded a graphic studio and a publishing house, which focuses on publishing Afro and African inspired comic books. So I know how hard it is to produce a comic book when you're Black, when you're African, when you live in Africa. These are three different realities, and when all of that combined, it is very difficult. So I know how hard it is to produce the comic book, and I know how hard it's also difficult for women to do that. When Joëlle said that all she had to do was just follow love, and she just need a computer, I was like, come on, you're
That's the storytelling, you know.
No,
That's the storytelling.
Your storytelling needs to add. No, I mean, she works every day. It's not
Yes.
just the internet. I mean, it's not just that. And everywhere she goes, she creates something new, and working in the comic book identity. No, I mean, working in the comic book industry. I mean, it's kind of an identity also being a comic book creator, but yeah, working in that industry and being a woman, it's very difficult, and you have to be focused and creative, and more creative than just drawing, art creation. Yeah.
Joëlle, is there anything you want to add? Also, I'm noticing a question for you in the chat if you want to take it and read it out to the audience.
Okay. I would just say it's true. Ren is absolutely right. You know, I love to give the storytelling that would just, give you enough energy and to boost you to get in the field. And when you see reality, you remember the storytelling and you say, I can make it. if I tell all the challenges,
Yeah.
people profiles like mine or profiles like Ren or others like Karine and such, it's not everybody can carry the weight of being a pioneer or be resilient to make things happen in the industry as a comic book artist and as a woman, a Black African woman. And as she said, I I have all the layers. I'm Black and African, and I live on the continent. So each time I have to produce something, It's just wonderful how depression comes to me, and I just say, "Not today, please. I have got something to do." But well, the part of the storytelling is really to encourage people to. The more we get to do things, the more we push all the limits that are already existing. And as an artist, it's really encouraging exhibitions like Kubuni, the comics of Africa, because you see that you are not alone on the continent. You are not even alone in your country. Some of the artists that we got in touch with, they didn't even know that they were not alone. They thought they were just them with their own Instagram, and with the exhibition, they realized that no, there are some other artists sharing the same nationalities, some even being in a country that they didn't know of. So this exhibition is very important, and it's true that well, for the sake of this kind of encounter and this kind of meetings, I really focus on um, how to bring the spotlight on the exhibition, and I'll be a bit shy about my work in the details. It's so far for this meeting, I'm here as a curator, so I will always try to focus. I will talk about my work just a little bit, like I told you earlier, just to scroll. I won't stop on it because I'm really focusing on how to give you who are seated in the building the desire to devour all the frames, all the drawings that you'll be able to see in a couple of minutes or so. And I really want you to get those sparkles in the eyes and to stalk us on Instagram, the right part of stalking, the right part, the good part of stalking. Concerning the questions, quickly, I would just, okay, the exhibition company has already visited all the continents, almost. We're working on Korea, in Japan. If not this year, next year we'll be in Korea, in Japan. Could you tell us which kind of impact it created? And when we know that there's a very few knowledge of African multiple realities, identity, and cultures, but the immediate, the rapid impact is that most of the artists in the exhibitions are getting to know each other, and in most of the countries, the exhibition have been exhibited. The residents are interested in getting to know more, getting to buy, because that's another aspect that we really didn't have time to talk about. You have issues in South Africa, having recent comic books. Earlier, Ismail, you talked about Tintin, Asterix, Lucky Luke. Those are comic books. French and Belgium comic books of the old. They are not that contemporary, even though the artists are trying to keep it modern. But you have artists in South Africa, for example, you have Daniel Hugo, you have Daniel Clark, you have Loizo. You have many artists in South Africa who do comics, but even their comics in South Africa are not distributed nationwide. So the immediate impact is that um, each time Kubuni gets to a new country, whether it is on the continent or not on the African continent, people are very curious and they want to order the books. They want to get in touch with the authors. They want to talk with them. They want to interact with them, and that's a win for us, because I know that we can cross the barriers, our geographical barriers, and even at times our linguistic barriers. As you see, we are not English speaker at the core. Ren and I, we are French African speakers, but now with the exhibition, we get to interact with you and to talk in English and to practice our English.
Yes.
So the immediate impact is really the connection, the links that are created, and with that link, with those links, bridges, and bonds, new projects get the spotlight also.
We
Um,
want to build a link by answering one of the questions in the room. I've been told that someone has a question in the room that they'd like to ask. So if Guillaume could pass around the microphone and let the person speak. We'd love to hear from you in the room, finally. Let's see. Oh, I called him. Yeah, oh, see, we have plenty of questions there. People are excited. They can't wait.
Is it on? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear
Yeah?
me?
I can hear you.
Thanks very much, Ren and Joëlle. It's been fascinating listening to what you've been telling us about this journey. My connection is with a local university. And I see one of my students has put a question into the chat for you as well. The thing that I find fascinating is that so many African artists are producing comic books from foreign locations that are not African, like Ren, for example. And the thing that immediately comes to mind for me is that both of you have this interest in science fiction and the fantasy that connects with Africa and its other realities. So on the one hand, there is the sense that Afrofuturism is the driving force. But the thing that I found most intriguing is that Nedia Korafor, Nigerian working in the United States, claims that her work is African futurism. And it's different. It's not diasporic. It relates specifically to that which is African cultures, language, histories, heritages, and so on. Can you perhaps contextualize for us how your work relates in a similar vein? Thank you.
May I answer? Okay, so that's a very interesting question. First of all, I will say that I have two things to say about that Afrofuturism term. Afro indeed is very different from African. So I understand why she said African futurism. Also, I have a very difficult relation with that word futurism because it's very weird and very frustrating, and I think it pisses me off a little bit when we want to talk about science fiction and people tell us no, it's futurism. So I'm always presenting my comic book as Afro science fiction comic book. And people tell me, yeah, it's Afrofuturism. I say, okay, I don't want to discuss with you. Call it whatever you like. I call it science fiction. And that comes with I think that what the industry wants to tell us is when you're African, and now I'm talking about African, when you're African, don't talk about science because you don't own science yet. You don't own the narratives of science fiction because you don't own science. Okay, you cannot go into space and stuff, so don't talk about it. Don't imagine. So that word Afrofuturism, if you describe your work as Afrofuturist, okay, I called my comic book science fiction. Don't come and tell me it's not science fiction. So first of all, that's my opinion on that word. And also, I didn't say my comic book was African science fiction, and that it's a politic stand for me because, as I said, I'm French. Cameroon doesn't allow both nationalities. If it did, I would say that I'm French and Cameroonian. I am not. I'm French, which means that when I want to go in another country, I don't have difficulties with visa stuff. So respecting that, what is African, and to me, I mean, I didn't call it African science fiction comic book because even though my father is Cameroonian, it's not a Cameroonian comic book. Even though the industry, where it was created, okay, I was in Cameroon when I created it, but the industry behind it, where I pay my taxes, is France. It's not Cameroon. So it's very important to me to distinguish myself as with a Cameroonian author who is currently publishing a comic book and who has difficulties to produce it, sell it, and sell it worldwide. So to me, words words are important. I don't know if I answered correctly.
But if I can just add something to what you said, and for example, when I have to when I have to talk about mulatto, I always say that mulatako is Afro fantasy or Afro sci-fi. Afro fantasy because you have this folklore and the heritage of the the cultural perception of people um, who live by the shore of West Africa, their interaction with the spirit of water, and that's why I say fantasy. And it's right. Well, you know, the identity and the feminism, the Black African identity and feminism, it's really if I have just to add the fact that she said her identity as a French. Well, it's true because I am a Cameroonian with a green passport. So getting visa is the part of the challenges that I don't tell in the storytelling because that's real life and that's really difficult to move in the countries from one country to the other. But when creating, even though you have all the experiences, all the heritage, well, your real life issues, but you're creating something to connect to an audience. And the audience at the end of the day, even though nowadays everything has to have an etiquette, a tag, everything has to be in a specific box, to reach a specific audience. At the root of all, you are a creator creating for an audience. You are creating for someone to read, connect, and love. And when you do something for someone else to read, connect, and love, you're just someone writing a story that will be read by somebody else. It's really a relationship that you're creating with an audience that you might not even have the opportunity to see one day face to face, and that's what beyond all the debate and all the necessary discussions, but those discussions come really after production, but are not really in the production phase because the artist is there to create. If we have to think of all the ramification, all the links, all the all the issues, all the perceptions that people might have, we will not just open up to create something to connect to the audience. We will be so mindful of creating something that will please people and not that interested in just telling a story, a graphic story.
May I
Okay,
ask
so
something?
let's. Okay, you can. And
Just
then we'll bring it back to the room full of people with questions. That way we can deal
okay.
with it. Go for
Yeah,
it.
I didn't talk about feminism, and and really, feminism is a huge part of my creation, and that is something I'm really unapologetic about. So it's part of my creation, and I just put it out there. And um, and is there anything I wished I knew when I first started creating? Um, Maybe the whole educating thing. I didn't know I had to do so much to explain so much about myself. I really thought that, okay, people have already told other people what feminism is, what being Black is. I mean, why do I have to tell people why why do I have to tell people what it is to be creating a comic book when being Black, feminist, or queer? I don't. Why do I have to explain so much myself? I just want to do comic books. But so I'm not apologetic. I put things in my stories, and I really hope that people get the message. But that's really my job. But I didn't know I had to do so much of explaining. And yeah, and fighting and resisting, because it's really, yeah, it's to create, to resist and resist. I don't know, but these two words are part of my everyday life: create and resist.
It's amazing. I think we'll take one last question from the room, and then we'll let them go and see the beautiful exhibition and let your work speak for itself. Okay. One question from the room, please. Here we go.
Yeah, we can speak this way.
Thank you. Is that the microphone? Yeah. Gosh, the sophistication is overwhelming me. Ladies, thank you. I just give so much respect to your indefatigable energy and the struggle. Let's call it that. It is a struggle. My second home is Uganda, but I'm forced to call myself a South African, with all the irony that goes with that. I have a stylistic issue to raise with both of you, and that is the overwhelming, maybe for your generation, I'm 65, so born in 58. I've seen comics come and go, the commercial failures and the American sort of Jewish post-war trauma, men playing out their Hercules fantasies and all the bad things that go with it. But the manga affectations, stylistically, it worry me tremendously. And I see in both your work, there's that big-eyed sort of gollywog thing. And for me, it's like I'm half Griqua, half white, half mixed race, and I have such beef with the stereotypes. And so for me, the Japanese influence is maybe still too strong. And if I go to maybe Aya, which is a fantastic, I think it's Congolese, it's such an awesome, it doesn't owe anything to Hergé, it owes nothing to it doesn't seem to have any cliches. So I wonder what your position is on the commercial aspect of having big-eyed child adults and the influence of Japanese manga. Could you just say something briefly on that? I think I won't say it's a corrupting influence. I would say it's just something that has arrived. And should we resist it? Should we look for a style coming from the continent, especially Congo, Cameroon, Liberia? There's so much visual invention. The masks are beyond anything that anyone has made, ever. And they've dominated Europe. Should there be a stylistic revolution to go with the narrative revolution that you're both, doing so well? Thank you.
I would just specifically, I think the big eyes. Isman, maybe you can share my file and really go to the last part of the document with all the styles that I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To really show them. But while you're looking for it, I will just say that Sakala, you have very interesting questions, but you don't like peace. you like problems. No, I love your questions. I really hope that we can keep in touch and continue the conversations. I really love your questions. I hope we have the opportunity later on after this. Thanks again for them. But concerning the eyes, what they say usually is the eyes are the mirrors of the soul. And concerning my work specifically, I grew up not only with, I said earlier, with Japanese animated feature. I read a lot of manga, but I also grew up with the Franco-Belgium and the American comic books. But the Japanese style is not just the big eyes. If you look at all the comic books, like the Disney creation of characters, even the Asterix, you will look at the eyes of Asterix. Asterix is supposed to be a character who is 40, but he has the eyes of a 3 years old. The eyes in the creation of graphic art is really the easiest way to convey a lot of emotions. So to me, you can clearly see some influences, but the more you look at my work, the less you see the Japanese. You clearly see the Japanese influence because the coloring, the lines that I have colors. It's clearly Disney. It's Disney who keeps coloring the lines around. It's Franco-Belgium characters who have plain colors without shades. Normally, manga or comic books, they have, shades around, but mine don't have them. So what am I trying to say? You won't escape some influences, but influences can only, the more you draw, it's like a child growing up, you will look at things and you can copy things, and the more you draw, the more you work on them, you bring out your own identity. You talked about Aya de Yopougon. um Aya has a specific style, but that style you can link it to Johann Sfar, you can link it to a certain style in European graphic art. La Vie de Benduta, or even Ren can complete with Mulatako. We have influences of our generation. I'm from the 80s, so I really grew up with a combo of American comics, Japanese manga, Chinese, Korean manhwa, and Franco-Belgium graphic novels. So it's a huge melting pot. But the more you go through my books, you'll see that I don't respect the frames of the manga. The manga they have a specific way of framing with angles. I don't have those angles. I don't have the angles of the comic books, and I don't have the angles of the French comic books. I don't have the 9 frames. There are certain things, you know the rules and you break them. And that's the reason why Kubuni is called comics from Africa, not comic from Africa, because no matter the influence that gives you the impression that it's just a reproduction of an influence, the more you look at comics books on the continent, you see identities, and those identities are it's like blueprints of the people who are creating. You can trace the influence, but you can see the identity. So to me, and it's always a wave. In South Africa, the style, if I take the example of Kwezi has a very, very American style, but the characters, the culture, the way they display their powers, the way the superheroes display their powers is very specific to South Africa. You don't have it in the West. So influence to me is not that bad. You just have to transform the influence into something that is really close, if not completely your identity. Influence has to help you to bring out or bring forth your own identity.
That's a very good answer. Really, thank you. I mean, it's important to acknowledge that one's work has different influences, but then, you just break the mold and do your own thing. That's fantastic.
Do,
Well,
do I have time to also answer?
You can add something, yeah, and then we'll cut off and say bye-bye to everyone.
Okay.
But go for it.
I think I also want to show the end of my
Of course. Okay,
video.
I'll pull it up. No worries.
About that manga inspiration, Joëlle already said everything. I really agree. I really like to explore different styles, and this is the other project I'm working on. And if you go on my social media and to see my work, you will see that I have different styles. And yeah, in Mulatako, I was influenced, and I, in general, am influenced by manga because I, I watched it, I read it, just like American visual art or European visual art. The problem is that sometimes what you think is African comic book is mainly white people drawing African comic book. Is the case with Aya de Yopougon. It's a white French man who drew it. So do you call it African art? The script writer is an African woman, but the person who draws is white. But yet you thought it is African art. And that's what we think African art is. And as a Cameroonian, I didn't grow with many, not as much visual representation of human bodies coming from Cameroon, except from statues, as you said. But if you watch Cameroonian statues from Fumban and you watch Nigerian statues, there are differences. They don't look the same. And so it's about representation, visual representation of human bodies, and what we imagine what we imagine the African realism to be.
Okay.
What do you think it is when African people draw realistic and not stylized? Comment on dit? Stylisé.
Stylized.
Stylized. Thank you. Stylized figures, and then maybe you might deconstruct that vision of what is. But I'm not saying that we're not influenced. That's not what I'm saying. I really agree with what Joëlle said. But really, we also have to rethink what is African art, what is African drawing illustrations. There are a huge variety of art to be discovered, and really.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, no, that was really good. Thank you, ladies, for participating in tonight's roundtable conversation. And now we can all go together, those of us who are in person, discover the exhibition and see the work you're talking about and the diversity of all different countries that are putting together all these creative productions. So yeah, thank you, everyone. And big clap to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for having us. Please have a blast. I wish you all the best for the exhibitions.
Yes.
Do not hesitate to write, to keep in touch, and well, let's see. Maybe Ren, if you go to South Africa, you snap a picture. If I go first, I'll snap a picture.
Yes.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Guillaume. Bye, everyone.
Bye.